Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the February office hours. We are just going to go over some kind of beginning thoughts. The kind of idea behind this one today was how to kind of start thinking about incorporating the Collective Access platform, the Connecticut Collections Project, into your daily workflow without feeling like it's a burden of, oh my God, we have to get everything in all at once, but we don't have anything in there, so I can't use it. And along those lines. So a lot of this, some of you may already know, or may be thinking along these lines, but just another way to kind of think about it going forward from a couple different aspects. We're just going to play around in the sandbox a little bit. We'll probably pop into the Fairfield database for a little bit. If anybody has any questions or any thoughts, go ahead and, raise a hand or just speak out. There's only a couple of us here this morning, so we can kind of go from there. One of the things that I was going to have people think about is, why did your institution get into this project and want to adopt collective access in the first place? Are you getting into it because you wanted to be able to find things at your museum? Do you want to have all of the knowledge you have about the thing in one place so you can find it easily? Did you want it to help you plan exhibitions? Do you want it to be something to make it accessible to people from the outside? Maybe you just needed to do an inventory before you need to do any of those other things, but you're not sure where to start or what's going to be best for you guys. So start by thinking about where you got it. One of the first things I was thinking about in how you start incorporating this into your world at your museum, think about the access levels. I'm going to go into the sandbox and look at this. When you've gotten the thing, a lot of the time people have a lot of volunteers. They may have a couple staff or peer volunteers that have been there for a really long time. But there's a lot of volunteers that just want to help out. One of the first things to think about is what kind of access you want to give to people and how you want to put people in as users into the system. I would recommend picking one or two people to be kind of a database administrator and have administrator rights. There are several different levels. So when we give you the system, we will give you the main login has administrative control, and from that person on, they can assign different levels to different people and different users. And there's plenty of other videos on all of the detail of these things, so I'm going to skim over it pretty quickly. If you see something that you want to know more about, let us know, and we can point the way to you to the YouTube channel and which videos might be useful, or we can help you out on a one-on-one basis as well. So all you're going to have to do is go into manage and access control, and this is just to give you the overall access roles. It comes with a few specific roles. This is kind of for those who don't know, the sandbox is kind of our playground for our test system. So you can go in and do whatever you want in the sandbox, and it will it doesn't matter. It's all like fake data, fake database. So you can just go and practice if you don't want to do any of this in your own system. What your system is going to come with is administrators, cataloger. There's a researcher aspect. We might have incorporated the volunteer, but I can't remember. But the administrator can basically do anything. So I would assign that to one, maybe two people. To kind of have the overview of everything. You do not want to give the administrative user to random volunteers. They don't need that level of control. They can go in and change things accidentally, not even know that they're doing it. So you want to go and give something to a cataloger, or maybe you want to create a volunteer role if there isn't one already, to have something that's a little bit more limited in what they can see. There's a lot of different things that you can do to go in for volunteers, interns, that kind of thing, that like personal information about contact information, then they're not going to do anything with it, but it's just easier to just have that part completely blocked out for people and only be able to access what they want. You can do that really at a granular level, and it gets kind of fussy if you want to create a new level. It's easy enough to do. Definitely get in touch with us and we can help you do it, because it's a little overwhelming when you first look at it. There's a lot of little buttons to push and things to click. Then consider who else is helping you in this system. Do you have a cataloger level that tends to be a little bit more professional, knowledgeable staff on that level, or even just somebody who feels more comfortable with a computer? They have a little bit more control generally, and can do things like change numbers, go up into a higher level, add records sometimes, depends. The volunteer is generally somebody who's just going to be just entering data in a very limited fashion. So figure that out ahead of time, is where everybody in your institution fits into this whole scheme. If you don't see something that seems to be a fit for you guys, maybe you just want educator and you want them really focused on a very specific set of things in your system, or that will be in your system. You can create that as well. The researcher level might work fine for them. You can go in and check and talk to us about it, and see if that would be something that you think would work to get more information on that. So that's one of the first things to think about. I have had people run into problems just because they automatically gave administrator level to like everybody, because they're like, oh, well, they need to do a lot of stuff. They don't. You can parse that out in a very more specific fashion for them. Okay, so the next thing you might want to think about for your institution is doing an inventory. You don't have anything in your system yet. You're not really sure what you have, where you have it. You just like, we just need to know what we have. We need to gain some intellectual ownership of these things. So what we have done a couple times, you don't need to make inventories a long, involved process. You really need only a few fields. Most of the time, people have started out with an Excel sheet. Some of you may be dealing with old inventories that were done at your institutions previously. I have an inventory in Fairfield that was done in the 80s. I still am dealing with numbers from that, but I have worksheets from that, and I have pretty much everything listed. So I could go back and just use those numbers and those worksheets to put stuff in, which I have done in a lot of cases. So you may have some of that too. You may have old card catalogs that just have those old numbers on it. And you want to start doing that or comparing, or you just want to start fresh and look at your shelf and just start listing things. So one thing to think about with that, we're going to kind of go back to inventory in a second, is think about locations in your institution. So get that set up if you can before you start doing anything else, because that'll be a good basis to get that physical control over everything as well, to know where it is. Even just to say that something's unknown, you know you have it, you've seen it in the last year, you just can't put your hands on it right now, you can still track that and it's fine. My counterpart in Minnesota does not like doing that. She'll say she doesn't put anything in if she doesn't know where it is and doesn't have a location for it. So this is very much in the realm of, I know I saw it. We have that thing. We used it in an exhibit 2 years ago, but I can't put my hands on it right now because we had to move storage locations, or there was a project with sprinklers, or something like that. So when you're adding locations, you're going to go into, and we're just going to do this plain into here like you're starting fresh. We're going to go into new storage location. And again, there's videos on this that goes into more detail. And you'll come up with something that looks like this, the storage location, and it gives you a hierarchy of stuff that goes down after that. So it goes out to the side as opposed to like a vertical hierarchy, but it acts in the same way. So storage location is always going to be storage location. and then you'll have everything split out from here. So we're going to add another storage location under this. And we want it to be, there's a bunch of options about which thing you can put in, and a lot of really good detail in this. You can put a whole campus in here. You can put building, a whole building, and it goes down into like rack, box, shelf, all the way down. If you call something a range and you don't see range, that's fine. You can just use a different, slightly different word for it, and you'll know that's what that means. You could use, rack instead of range, something like that. Or unit instead of that. There's something that'll be able to translate well to that. And that's just internally something you can put in your notes or mention to your interns and volunteers. So we're going to create a whole new building. So we're going to do building, and then we're going to click a little plus. And there's a place for a name and a location identifier. The name is what you're typically going to call that building in that place. The location identifier is usually a shorthand for it. So I'm going to call this fancy new, I'm going to make this really long, museum collections storage. And then in location identifier, I'm just going to call this new storage. There's a thing for notes. If you want to do a note on this for anything, I love notes. I love adding notes to things. And that's in a, well, I wish I could say this about it. So you could just say, new building constructed in 2026. This is just because I have dreams of a new building for us being constructed someday for storage. The record status, use that if you want. I don't use it a ton for storage locations. Sometimes I do. It might be useful for inventories to go in and say whether you've finished inventorying a section or not. Discuss inside, and there's no right way or wrong way to use that necessarily. I'm going to say this is completed because I don't need to say anything else about this building, and I'm going to save it. Now you'll see that this shows up here, and then you just use the same process to go and add more things. Very important, you don't have to add everything right this second. If you just have the basic skeletal outline of where you're storing things and where you're putting things, that's fine. If you have all the detail, great, go ahead and add it. If you're really at the beginning of this and you're like, I'm only working on the big new building, I haven't really done much else, but I know that there's a rack for storage in there. And again, there's more detail on exactly how to do things in locations, because sometimes it can be tricky. So we're now in the fancy new building. We do want to add to this, and this time we want to add a rack. Under child in this building, click the plus, and we're calling this rack A. Very exciting new name. And I'm just going to say right here the same thing, basically. And on this, I just feel like adding notes. Unit to store pens. And this is going to be editing in progress because we may add more stuff to this, we may not, it doesn't matter. We're going to save that. So now in our new building, we have rack A, and you can fill this out as you go. You can change names of things. I would use keep the location identifier the same. Sometimes you can change a name of this and just say, now I'm calling it rack A pens only, something like that. This is really useful also for places that you may have in your institution that have just colloquial names that you've used forever, like the walnut room or something. So you could put something in the notes to say used to be stored in the walnut room. You've moved the whole rack in there. I use that notes bit quite a lot for our historic house. I know I've said it before in tutorials. In our historic house, which is offsite, we have the north parlor, the south parlor, the north chamber, the south chamber. I'm usually really good with direction. For some reason, in this house, it's kind of kitty corner. It's like kind of sideways, so I cannot keep straight, which is north and south. So what I've done in the notes is saying when you walk in the door, specifically in this for that room, when you walk in the front door, this is the room to the right. Or when you get to the top of the stairs, this is the room closest to the cemetery. It's stuff that's not public. It's just for you guys, for your own information, whatever you need to put there to be helpful. Because this way, in the future, I know whoever comes after me, if they're directionally challenged, they can look at my notes and be like, oh, it's that one. Okay, I understand. And you can go from there. So you can keep doing that as you need. I always recommend putting locations in for as much as you can. Going back up here, I don't know if I have it here. Let's pop to Fairfield for a second. And a couple of things I've added for this. Okay. I'm just going to go straight to our locations. So when I split out my storage locations here, I've got things split out into stuff like conservation, just to say that something is off at conservation at this particular point in time. I can mark it as not being in the building. I've also got one you could use on loan. I've done that for conservation as well, just to say it is not here in the building, it is out somewhere. I've got missing and unknown. Unknown is I'm entering this record. Like I was saying before, I know I've seen it. I know I have this thing, or I should have this thing, but I just don't know where it is right now. So I know that I need to keep an eye out for it. Missing, I use only for things that are actually missing, that have been documented as missing, like things that have been stolen. We have a couple of those. My old museum had a couple of those as well. I don't take it out of the system. I leave it in there to denote that we used to own it. We had it, but now it's not there anymore. So I'll put that in as missing. I have a whole section for offsite storage, which has changed multiple times over the years, as you can see. Our old location, our old location, and our old location. But it's helpful to use those and leave those in there if you've moved on to somewhere else, which is why I put the big obsolete in the parentheses and as another name for it, so we know that. So create as many locations as you think are going to be helpful to you, and go ahead and create something like that with odd terms like unknown. What I do a lot with the unknown as well, if I'm entering something and I don't know where it is, I will put in the notes when I'm putting it in that location unknown at time of data entry. That is something you can always go back and check in the log for your object. If we get into an object, I'll show you later just to make a little note on that. Okay. Back to the inventory part of this. So you need to do an inventory. I would use your system to do an inventory because it's only going to help you just get more stuff in there and be able to find it later on when you're doing full records, when you're doing an exhibition, something like that. So I'm just going to go back to the home page for now. So this is still in Fairfield. Let me go back to the sandbox. So you can see we've got a lot of stuff in Fairfield, and I've got it split out into categories on the top so I can see what things are. Back in the sandbox, back to the home. So we're just going to go into objects. And this is just all the objects in the system right now. And we're going to pick a random one from the top. I've created a inventory page in the sandbox. I've done one for Fairfield also for something similar but slightly different, and we'll look at that later. Most of the time people have used, like I said, Excel spreadsheets, which is fine. It's a quick way of looking at things. Those old inventories will probably be on little index cards in like a file somewhere. I have that. I have a little bit of everything in Fairfield. I've got 2 inventories, a costume inventory and a regular inventory. That includes the costume. So I do have items that have like 4 numbers. It's fun. But this is our inventory page that I created specifically for this. We can help you create one so you have just the fields that you want. This one's a bit long because you do have to scroll, but it's a general, it would contain everything that you need to know. So we can also make sure that if you're doing a full-fledged inventory, that this inventory test only pay or inventory page is the first thing that comes up when you go into your system. Right now it's set for everything to go to the basic information, but we can set it temporarily to go straight to this inventory page. You need an object identifier. This can be an accession number if you have it. It can be your inventory number. I've seen a couple inventories that start with an A. It's usually A dash something. Whatever you decide to use for taking your inventory. You do not need to assign an accession number at that point in time because you are just getting a handle on what's there. Don't automatically accession everything right that second. You want to make sure that this is something that you want to permanently keep for your collection and then go from there. So if you're just doing a straight inventory, go ahead and assign that A1, A2, A3, however that number would work best for you. Don't accession it until if it doesn't have one just to do an inventory. Because keep in mind, this just is object identifier. We use it as accession number, but it is just the identifier for it. I have added other identifiers in here because you'll very often, when you're going through objects, have other numbers that show up on something. My costume inventory was a C number. So I would put that on there as well if I have it with the thing, because this will help you trace records down the line. And all this information is going to end up in your regular record. This is all the same fields that you're using for this object. This type I'm putting in inventory. I've put other numbers in here. A lot of people will have X numbers, denoting that they don't know where something came from or when it came in. That was a very heavily used thing, is to put an X in front of something to indicate that they didn't know information about it. I have different ways of handling that now, rather than kind of mess up the runs of things, because it can get confusing. So actually, I'm going to go with a nice, when we did a lot of this. And you can just put previous number, something like that, and to denote this is where this is. There is this inventory section that we've had added to locations in the last year or two. This you can do multiple entries. So this is a good thing to do if you're for the initial inventory. You can sign in who did it and when they saw it, so you know it existed. I also did a shortcut on my name because this links into your entities. I did a shortcut on my name. So if I just put DL, oh, I have to do it in Fairfield. If I just put DL in this one in Fairfield, it shows up as me. I'll just put my whole name on this one. So if this one in inventory date, we're going to say I saw it last Thursday. So now I know that it existed in 2023 and I've now seen it in 2025. And your dates will normalize as you put those in there. So this is good to know that you always know that, okay, this doublet, this is the chain of where this doublet is. Storage locations are here, so you can add it to a location here, put notes. These notes will exist as the regular notes in your record from the basic information screen. You can add a new note, whatever it pertains to. This is, these are just the really generic notes. And this is just that I've added it to this because, again, I love notes. I'm going to put location note, so I know what kind of note it is. That's just something I like to do that my predecessor at my old museum did. Location note, this was reboxed when off-site storage moved locations. And then a lot of the time, and this is again just like a little workflowy thing that I like to do, again for my predecessor, I sign the notes and date them. You can see the dates in the log, but it's just handy to look at it. And you can make a note in your location notes too for something like that. So now I know that this is boxed and I'll see it now. Okay, great. I also added for this object status section, if something's accessioned or not. I do denote missing things, again, if I'm entering it from somewhere else. If something is off-site, we're going to pretend this is off-site. Also a good place to mark pending accessions. So if you're inventorying something, you're like, oh, we definitely want to accession that, but I don't have the number, click that pending accession and you can go from there. You can't click accessions and pending accession. You can only click one, which will kind of be a good catch for you. And I put a thing to upload media as well. If you take the step of, as you're going through your inventory, you take a quick snapshot of things. That depends how much time you have, how much manpower you have, what you want to do from there. So then when you save this, this will all go into your regular record. So if I go back to my basic information, now I'm seeing those new other identifiers that I added for this record. And I'm seeing the location note, those other notes exist. So as you're creating new items, you'll end up with them in your system. So if I wanted to do a new object, I'm going to call this, I'm doing an inventory, so I'm going to call this A1000 because I already made a ton of headway in my inventory project, and I am inventorying this green pencil thing. So we're going to go mechanical pencil, and we're just going to save that. I meant to, oh, it won't let you go into the inventory one until you save that initial one. If you have it as your primary, it should be fine. But now we're going to our inventory. I don't have any other numbers for this. I've seen it today. It'll be in your log that you created it, but this is just kind of a to keep track of yourself. When you pull that date up, you can, it'll also have today's date. So you can just click right on there and not have to type. Related storage location. We have our new, we just type a keyword for where you are. Location pens only, that is exactly where I'm putting that. I'm going to say it's permanently located there. There's a whole discussion with the locations about using the home location, which I really do encourage because there's a lot of stuff set up on the back end of the system if something has a home location. Actually, we'll do this in a second. Notes, I don't need any notes. I'm going to say it's pending accession. I don't have a picture of it. And there we go. Now you have your record just for that. You can use this to do reports, displays, anything like that as you go once you get further into things. If we went into basic information now, you're going to see a really blank record, but it's there for you to go in and further fill it out as you go. I didn't put description in. It's something you might want to do. You could put it in a note. For something very important, I don't need to go into a lot of detail about things, but you can even just say it's a green mechanical pencil, just so you know that, oh, it's the green one, it'll be easy to spot. Let me pop to Fairfield for a second. So with we had an offsite storage move, as most of you may have heard a little while ago. So as we're going through a lot of things, I had to move boxes to the new unit. Then I had to move them again for contractors doing piping. That was awesome. So we are putting things back in a very mindful way and making sure that we track everything. So I created an offsite inventory that's quite short. It's just got the identifier, still the other identifiers, because I have a lot of stuff that have a couple numbers. Inventory, location, location notes. For me, I know what a lot of this stuff is, and or I have pictures of it. So I haven't necessarily done the description for this, but you can add that if you want, and just keep it to short. You don't need to do a whole catalog record for something. You just want to note enough to be able to find it. So this, I can go through and look through all my boxes and put them in places and figure out where they're going. Actually, I have boxes that have old location identifiers on them like this. This is the name of the box when we did a move. So if I want the offsite inventory for this one, here's the box. This is a 3 times old location, this GE thing. So I need to make a note for this one to locate an inventory, just for myself to know in the location that I need to find this and go from there. Because right now I think it doesn't, I don't even know what's in this one. This is a result of an old, the way that they did a move 10 plus years ago. Yeah, corsets garters. That's all I know about it. I may actually take that. This is getting off topic. Sorry, guys. I may put that here in location notes, and that'll give us just more information as we go. So thinking through how you want to use the system again. What if you just want to use it for an exhibition? I have an exhibit coming up. I don't know a lot about how I'm going to do this. I know what I want to use. Nothing's in the database yet. So I guess I'll just like write it on a piece of paper somewhere. Fine. But go ahead and use the system for what you need to use it for. And you can put things in on the fly to be able to include it in that. So I'm going to go back to the beginning here. Again, there's going to be other office hours and things very specifically related to those topics. Let's go to the sandbox, sorry. So we're in the sandbox. Say we want to do a new exhibition. And the exhibition ID number is 100% what you guys want to make it. It's just a way of identifying it in the system. So you might want to just even put your exhibition name in first. So I'm going to say pens and pencils over, and you have to have a semicolon or a colon and then the rest of the thing too. I have an exhibition title generator that comes up with some pretty funny things sometimes. Okay. So as you're going through your idea of this exhibition, this is a very simple aspect of the database. There's not a ton of stuff to put in, but it can be used to have something like help you kind of define your ideas and pull together things that you want to use. I'm going to save that so we have it. So also, even though this says required, it won't yell at you. It'll still save it. What I use for a ID number in Fairfield is I do the year of the exhibit and just like a quick keyword. This is whatever our internal name usually is. It actually helps sort when I do the year like that. It actually helps you sort when things are just at a quick glance. So we're going to open this on June 1, and this is going to be an awesome exhibit. So we're going to close it on June 1. Actually, I'm going to close it in June 30th, 2026. This location is going to be in the hall. I don't know if we have that as, oh yeah, no, this is just a free text field, so you can put it where you want. And then any notes from there. and you can put your big idea here. You have a spot for relationships where you can relate objects, people, or loans if you're getting a loan from somewhere. Your admin info is here very much like the other one of what's the state of your record. It's editing in progress. Collective access, we don't have a capacity to make these public yet. We will at some point, and you guys will be the first to hear of it. So click save. So, oh, let me get it back to my relationships. So for our objects, do I have anything that I can use? Oh, I have a bunch of stuff. Look at this. This is great. Oh, wait, here's that mechanical pencil that I just put from the inventory. It doesn't have a real number yet. It's still got that inventory number, but it's in here, so I can use it. So I'm going to add that, that it's exhibited. I saw a few other things, so we can add some of the other items in here. Slate pencil? Sure. I have no idea what's in here for pens and pencils because it's all whatever people have played with over the years. Oh, pencil sharpener. Perfect. So now we can save that, and we've got all of these things related to this exhibit. And then again, you can create your own custom display to have things figure out how you want. Now you've also got these 3 related objects in there. So you may not have everything fully cataloged, but now you've got these linked to this exhibit. So you know you can go to these 3 objects and say, oh, okay, here are these 3 things. I'm seeing 2 because I'm guessing one of them was deaccessioned. You can see that going into your display, and it says deaccession, hide, or show, which is very useful to have. You can also do it from your initial search too, to have deaccessioned items not show up. I'm going to have them show for now. So there's this, we've got all these things. And you can use this to go on and do other displays, other notes, other sets, things like that to move forward and work on your exhibit. In your individual record, you have a spot for exhibit label. You can start writing your label text there if you want. I find if you've got like a full exhibitions team or group at your museum, even if it's just your exhibitions group volunteers, exhibitions people and database people have very different ways of thinking as they're planning. And I don't ever want to tread on the toes of what they're doing. So what I end up doing at my museum is once they've made pretty good headway with their exhibit, then I start adding it in here because they've got their own workflow. And by the end, once the exhibit's up, is when I have everything complete and have locations changed and all that. One really useful thing with doing that home location is I'm going to put this in that other new building. And there's, again, videos on this. I'm going to click that rack 8 pens. This is the home location. This is where this thing will always go back to. And I'm going to click save. So since this has now been linked to an exhibit, once the exhibit takes place and begins, it'll show up as being in that exhibit at that point in time. Actually, I wonder if I can change the date of this. I'm going to say this is starting January 1, 2025. I don't know why it's not showing up as the 1 in here. That's odd. It usually doesn't do that. So I'm going to go back into my objects, back into my mechanical pencil. Now you can see up at the top, it's automatically moved over. So if you have 100 objects in an exhibit, you don't have to go in and change their location every single time. It will show up as that being the current location. Once the exhibit's done, if it has a home location, if you've marked it with a home place, it'll automatically go back to that home location. And you do have leeway to move it to other places too. That's a whole nother location program. That's kind of the highlights about thinking of where things are and thinking about recording information about things. This is as you're going, now that pencil's in there, now you can go in and add dimensions. I'm gonna say this is 7 inches. Overall, okay, now you have that information from your exhibit. You have your subjects. You can put provenance in as you learn things, as you do research for the exhibit, or as you have time to have an intern or another volunteer adding the information from any records that you might have. But it's just a way to get this in there so you can start collecting that information. Okay. That's probably more than enough for today because this is mostly just a thinking about versus an actual procedure session. So I'm going to stop recording and then we can see if anybody has any other questions. Oh, wait, somebody put something in the chat that I didn't see. Yeah, Joanne asked if there is a report for locations. I'm going to keep recording for a second. You can create whatever kind of report for locations that you want. It all depends. I will still keep this on because this is a good question. I'm going to go back to Fairfield and you can see how many locations reports you can set up. Again, displays and reports are basically the same thing. It's all based off of manage my displays. I think I have an office hours about that. If I don't, I will. So if I'm in Fairfield, I'm going to go to an exhibit because that's one of the things you really want locations reports for a lot of the time. Oh, no, I'm not in Fairfield, sorry. They jumped out. Many of you will be familiar with my Alice exhibit, because that's a good report for that. So I've got more than 100 things that show up as related to Alice as a keyword, but I'm going to go into this occurrences, Alice in Museum Land. I'm kind of going a long way around, but it's kind of showing how a lot of things interconnect and relate to each other. So now I'm going to go into the 45 related objects I have for Alice. And especially thinking about if you want to pull stuff or if you need to put stuff back and figure out where everything is. So the gear over here is your display option / report option. I actually have a similar one up because I was working on something last night. So keeping in mind, this is Fairfield. This is a lot of me playing with the system. These are all of my custom reports. There's a couple reports that are out of the box that come with it, but then you can completely do whichever ones you want. I've got a couple different ones. I've got one that's a home locations displayed as a list. I'm going to put home location. I'm going to click the arrow and it'll change your kind of spreadsheet display to this. So I have it with the picture just because I always like the pictures, the identifier, the title, the current location, any location notes. And then you can use the arrows. If you're working on a desktop, you can use the arrows to arrow over. If you're working on a laptop, the keypad will move that from side to side. Otherwise, you have to go all the way down to the bottom to the slider. But the arrowing over will work. So I've got any existing related storage locations, any location notes for any of this. This was all pretty straightforward. And this is where some of the stuff is. Some of it is still showing up as being in the exhibit because I never put a home location for this. We didn't have that home location in this feature until a couple of years ago. So I still am playing catch up with a lot of it. But I can see that these goggles go in the protective eyewear box. This pipe is in the box that I have named TS5 B11 smoking equipment. The key is in E12D in my back storage, things like that. So you can see where this goes back to. I've also got I've got a location confirmation list. I mean, a lot of these are really the same, but I've just tweaked one or two things dependent on exactly what I need it for. This one basically just has identifier titles, dates, because this is one that I used more for exhibitions. And then getting into current location and related locations. And whether something had an inventory so I can see. I think I just did one that's very inventory based. Oh, inventory. So I have an inventory one and an inventory by location. I don't remember what the difference is, honestly. And I just did them within the last couple of weeks. Okay. Oh, this is for dresses that I have. So we have a dress show coming up. So I kind of created it for that. And this is just a very short, quick one. And where's what was the other one? Inventory by location. They're probably going to be the same, honestly. Oh, only slightly different because this one has other identifiers in there as well. So if I go to the spot, and I can also, I put the inventory in so I can tell where it is, especially with all the moves that we've done at that offsite, and any location notes. I'll put stuff in there like needs new box needs to be replaced, stored within another box. That should be in locations anyway, but so it's kind of whatever you need it to do. Think about what the information is that you need for your report, your location report, whether you want a picture or not, and then you can create your own custom report yourself. I'm going to go back and look at some point the reports display either office hours or tutorial and see if we need to update that. It might be time because I think it's been a couple years.
Is there a descriptor in the new manual on how to set up reports?
Should be.
Should, okay.
I say should be. It's been a really long time since I looked at the manual, even though I just rewrote it. Let me see. I think it's in the appendix. I'm checking now for you can't see, Joe, because I'm in another, my other laptop. Now I'm going to stop recording, so we're not watching me scroll.